Hello, this is Imran Amed, founder and CEO of the Business of Fashion. I'm here for our latest BOF Live conversation. And today I'm really excited to be connecting with one of our trusted, beloved BOF 500 members, Omeyemi Akerele. Omoyemi is very well known in the world of design in Nigeria, and so I'm just going to.
Hi, hello.
How's everything? How's everything going over there?
Ooh, it's going as best can be, considering the situation we've all found ourselves in.
Yeah. So Omoyemi, just as many people who are joining us from all over the world might not be familiar with you or Style House Files, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I work in a company called Style House Files, and we're a fashion business development agency based in Lagos, Nigeria. Within the agency, we sort of have a five-pronged approach to supporting fashion and the process of ensuring that fashion is a bit more structured in Nigeria through advocacy, capacity building and skills development, nurturing and talent discovery, and of course our showcase platform, Lagos Fashion Week. So with those sort of like 4 or 5 things, we barely manage to keep the focus and the vision alive, which is to establish the business of fashion in Nigeria, contribute to the economy, and begin to ensure that fashion can contribute significantly to Nigeria's GDP, and ultimately support other supporting industries as well, to be able to create jobs and all of the good stuff that fashion can do.
Great. So before we dive into the fashion specific stuff, I'd love to get just like an update from you on what's happening in Nigeria right now as it pertains to the coronavirus pandemic. What's the mood? What's been the government response? How are people doing in Nigeria right now?
So we all know that there's the COVID-19 pandemic is essentially a health crisis. It's been described, I think, by some people as a human tragedy, considering the lives that have been lost thus far. So in Nigeria, I guess we're also experiencing this, and for the very first time, I've come to realize, not me in general, but I guess we've all come to realize that it's our responsibility and our duty to keep not just ourselves safe, but in keeping ourselves safe, we're keeping every other person within our community and within our circle safe as well. The government's response, I think the first case of COVID-19 in Nigeria was on the 29th of February with someone who'd arrived in Nigeria, and at the time it was still a bit sketchy, but since then, things have sort of risen rapidly, and currently there are about 111 or possibly more. Anything could have happened in the last couple of hours. People who've tested positively that we know officially, that's been recorded to COVID-19 in Nigeria. So the government's response initially was a bit slower than we would have wanted. But in the last 2 weeks, there's been so much effort on the part of the public and private sector to try to contain this pandemic. And a lot of people are anxious. I'm very anxious, but I'm also hopeful at the same time. Anxious because I'm very aware that Nigeria might have a population of about 180 to about 200 million people, but we all know that about half of this population, or possibly more, currently live below, the minimum wage level. So thinking about the possible impact that can have on livelihoods, thinking about how fragile our health system is, these are all the things that make us all concerned, not just me as a person, but quite a lot of people that I've spoken to. And of course, hope, on the other hand, that yes, with all that's going on, with the private-public sector partnership, with everything that government's trying to set up to put in place, especially in Lagos State, I must confess that, there's a glimmer of hope that we might be able to pull through together.
There's been some talk. I was watching the news here last night, and they showed the massive setup that the government in Nigeria has put in place in a kind of, it looks like a big open field for testing and whatnot. There's been talk that, because African countries have had experience with epidemics before where there are, the spread of diseases, that there's more experience in managing these things. But there's also been talk that actually this idea of social distancing is actually, it's a real privilege, for those of us in certain countries who are able to isolate ourselves in homes, like densely populated countries like Nigeria or Brazil or India, is social distancing is sometimes not even possible. Like, so do you have some thoughts on the experience that, a country like Nigeria has in managing something like this, especially when, as you say, there's like 200 million people, and it's and social distancing is in a way like a privilege?
Definitely, it is a privilege. I mean, my family and I, we've been in quarantine for about 14 days now because, we've been exposed to travel to initially high-risk countries. But even that has made me realize that it's pretty much almost impossible to be able to, get everyone within a community isolated. If we talk about minimum wage workers, where they live, their neighborhoods, their communities, sometimes a lot of people live in what we call face me, I face you, where there's so much shared infrastructure, shared facilities, it's almost impossible not to have human contact. But what the government's tried to do is, to sort of educate people through videos, through messages and on radio, pidgin English, and, different languages to educate them on the importance of hand washing with running water. It's been very important that, there's some sort of re-engineering their minds that, listen, this is going to affect everyone. And there's also been, what really touched my heart this week was Lagos State set up feeding banks across Lagos State so that people can go and have access to food. Because Nigeria is pretty much, a lot of people live from hand to mouth. And basically what that means is if they're not working, they're not earning. So it's been very, 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 very important to try to think about how do we ensure that people are still paid? How do we ensure that we put food on the table? How do we ensure that, we educate them that this is something that can affect everyone, irrespective of age, race, religion, whatever try to divide us in the first place. It can affect everybody. And I think it's not just, the fact that private sector has also come to support has made it even more, emphasize the need for it to be a collective effort to try to educate these people. So if there is support staff or people that work in factories, you have to constantly check in on them and just remind them, send hand sanitizers, soaps, even we as a company, we've had to reach out to our community. Can you please send us soap so that we send to other garment factories where to encourage them to keep hand washing when they go home? Because it's not just this was before the total lockdown. That they have to, whatever the practice at work should be what they do at home as well. Hand wash, sanitize, repeat. So it is tough. The thought about people who live in conditions like that is one of the things that gives me, anxiety and cause for concern, that this really has to be contained as soon as possible so that we can flatten the curve and hopefully get this behind us.
Yeah, I keep thinking about how we're all susceptible to, obviously getting this infection, but there's some people who are going to be impacted so much more just because they don't have, the ability or the access to some of the resources that others of us do have. So I think it's always important to keep this in mind, that this pandemic is sweeping across the world. People are at different phases. I mean, if you talk to people in Italy or Spain right now, or people in New York versus people in like you in Nigeria, where, the pandemic is only just beginning its rise. I mean, there's so many different aspects to consider in terms of how it's going to affect us. I guess I also wanted to understand from you, Omoyemi, you work with so many young fashion designers in Nigeria. I had the privilege to meet some of them in Paris a few seasons ago. How are they doing? How are they coping? Because when I talk to young designers all over the world right now, it's a real struggle.
Imran, I mean, what's even more frightening is we haven't even started seeing the worst of it, because this is really just starting. And I remember last week I put out a random tweet saying, is anybody really selling on Twitter? And the response, apart from like 2 or 3 people who said, they were still selling, everybody admitted that people are not even the right frame of mind to shop. I mean, when pandemics happen, or of this nature, of this magnitude, people instantly reach out for what's most important, either food, obviously making sure the household, all of the household utility stuff and groceries and all of that, and sometimes fashion items or clothing items are usually at the back burner. So it's really, really going to affect, it's really going to have it's really going to have an effect on our, and in our case, it's still a gradually emerging ecosystem. I cannot even call it an industry. So trying to think about how this is going to affect business, affect, their sales, and in turn, the ripple effect is going to have on the people they hire, the people who work with them, Informal sector around sub-Saharan Africa accounts for about 55%. So imagine the ripple effect that's going to have if fashion houses or brands, or who are mostly MSMEs, are not able to make to earn an income for themselves, for the business. It's going to affect everything within that ecosystem, where they're sourcing from, who their retailers are, and so many other things. And there's been efforts as well by different people to try to support and handhold them during this process. So we are going to launch a series of workshops, but it's more about trying to educate people that it cannot be business as usual, that more than ever before we have to be mindful of the people, the processes, the products, in sourcing, in production, the sort of things that people sell as well, because it cannot just be, we can't just go back to life as we know it. Other platforms like Assembly Official are organizing clinics, one-to-one mentorships to sort of talk to people. I think I have one of those sessions tomorrow where you can pretty much call and ask questions and, anything. Not that we have the answers, because I think it's one of those things that I don't really think I have the answers. I've read the forecast from McKinsey, what all the grammar that's coming out of this about the potential effects. But referring back to when I said to you that I see BOF as fashion prophets, referring back to the 2020 report and outlook, and I had to go back to it because I kept asking myself, how didn't we see this? And I'd had a conversation with my pastor as well on the other, and where he talked about something similar. So I realized that, wait a minute, when we were at Voices and going through all of that and reading it, and I thought, Imran, this sounds a bit grim. Like, really, there's going to be a decline in sales, decline in this. I just put it aside. I shoved it. I confess, I didn't really read it because I'm thinking we're going higher. Things are going to get better and stronger. And I had to pick it up again to read. Like, okay, that's what this means. If you were forecasting like a 3 to 4% drop in overall, retail across the world, and now we're looking at possibly worse. So imagine what the effect that can have on an economy like ours, or even an ecosystem like ours that's still pretty much fragile and still just trying to, to grow. But I think that's also where our strength lies in, because with Africa, we've always been pro slow fashion. We've always encouraged designers to produce minimum of 1 collection a year or 2 a year, and that's because we're still trying to grow our retail, we're still trying to grow our markets and all of that. So we also don't have that many brands who rely on a global supply chain to stay alive. So a lot of people, not a lot, a few people are still sourcing locally, but most people source their textiles from outside the country. I'm hopeful that once the restriction of movement ends in Nigeria and people can get back to work, because if they're not earning, they're not buying. It's just as simple as that. So as long as we can keep production going, as long as people can pay their staff, as long as people can meet their payment obligations and all of that, there's a glimmer of hope. But it's all too early, too soon to be able to call. But I think the government launched some sort of intervention for MSMEs, and they've encouraged everyone to try to apply and see if your company or your business falls within that category. Quite a few people have reached out to us in the last 24 hours as well to work with them on a survey to make sure that the right people that need to be on that program are the ones that benefit from it. So I think it's a bit optimistic from that end that they might or will get the support that's needed to help them through this phase.
Yeah, I think government support is going to be essential. I know lots of governments around the world have been trying to find ways of kind of preempting the demise of small businesses. And I think if companies, small companies in particular, are able to get support through this crisis, then there's a real opportunity on the other side, because I feel like everything's going to change. I think all the rules that we had about the way the fashion industry once worked, the way we had to have clothes presented, the way we had to structure things in seasons, the places where we thought there was good quality and low quality, the way we treat our workers, all of these things are now up for discussion. All of these things can be changed, because if I just look at my own company, there were so many things that we've thought about and we've wanted to do, but we've never found either the energy or time or space to do them. But this situation has kind of forced us to consider those other things. It's accelerated, our thinking and our way of doing things. And so when I think about the way as we as an industry have thought about sustainability, when I think about the way we've thought about the way the fashion system works, when we think about fashion education, everything seems like it's up for change. And so although this is a grave humanitarian crisis, tens of thousands of people are dying and lots of people are sick, which is horrible, and especially for the people who have lost loved ones. I do think if we go through this with the mindset of there's an opportunity here and we have to learn from this and we have to use this to kind of redefine what the fashion industry is and why it exists, I think there's a real opportunity for us to make some really important changes. So that's not to kind of understate the human toll, because the human toll for me is front of mind. Like, I remain extremely concerned about my own parents, my loved ones, the people in my team and in my community. But I hope that when we come out of the other side, there's a real sense of kind of learning and opportunity that we've seized in this situation.
Oh yes, certainly. I think more than ever before, this is going to leave us all asking ourselves that question, what's next? Because we've all suddenly come to realize that the single thread that binds and unites us all together is our humanity. We're all human. COVID-19 has shown that irrespective of your age, your race, your income, your religion, anything, your geographical location, we're all human. As long as you're human, you can get, this virus and you can test positive to COVID-19. So I think with that, more than ever before, we have to realize that it's important that we come together, communication as a community, collaboration, co-creation. How do we work together moving on? I'm as responsible for you as you were responsible for me. Because when we think about social distancing, the reason why we're all at home now is to prevent us, coming in contact, or if we're infected, infecting other people. So if we can do that now, it definitely is going to get us thinking of how best, we can all live our lives moving on. It cannot be business as usual. And similarly, with us as an organization, we've had to ask ourselves a question. Our season 1 activation, which thankfully was always a more considered approach to Lagos Fashion Week. It was always smaller. It was always more either like a presentation format or, very intimate. This season, we've had to take everything online. Imran, we've never done that. I mean, the closest we've come to using technology was last season, and that was having a live show on YouTube. But now we're going to have to do everything online because we think this story is so relevant to now. It's themed woven threads. And initially, it was just to bring together about 10 different brands, to explore and tell us about their processes. These are people who work in communities with artisans, with craftsmen, either for dyeing their clothes or even sourcing. Like our mate is based in Bamako, Mali, the community of women, the cotton growers that she works with, to just sort of give us the human side of all of these stories. And in collaboration with Fashion Open Studio, to be able to tell their stories, like these are the people that make up my community. That's what fashion needs to start doing, It might sound like it's a bit easier for us because this is what we know, this is what I know, but it's also what I've always believed in, that, fashion cannot be business as usual. We have to go back to the drawing board and begin to value what's important to us, and it's people. People, people, people. It has to be people-centric. It has to think about the environment. It has to think about, how this is going to impact life beyond the profit margin. And I guess if we can all begin to think that way beyond, the need to make that loud big bang and, the fashion. And we are also guilty of that to an extent, but more than ever before, I'm so happy that this season showcase is contained. You're going to see our brands from their showrooms. It's going to be a virtual tour.
So when is that happening, Omoyemi?
So it's a series of things that's going to start from the 3rd of April to the 26th.
Okay.
And will be workshops, Q&As with them. And it's just, something we're playing with that we would never have done if this didn't happen. And it's just, it's just forced us to think, like, the only thing I know is these people are relying on us, and we have to, for the sake, not just for their sakes, but for the sakes of livelihoods that are dependent on them as designers, we have to make an effort to help them tell their story, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Amazing. So it might be too early for you to comment on this, but I know that you do a series of physical events. Do you think that you'll be able to hold those events this year in the autumn?
I think it's too early to call. We're going ahead like it's going to happen because it's in October, but we're mindful of the people. We're not going to sacrifice the people for anything. The only thing that sometimes it's a bit reassuring is, for us, Lagos Fashion Week has always been a bit localized in the sense that it's focused on brands within Nigeria from Africa. So there's a bit of travel involved, but it's not that big on that sort of scale. And like everyone else, we're exploring how designers can show their work to the world, from their showrooms and their studios, because that might be the future, and we have to be ready for it.
Okay. Well, I hope to finally make it there. I was really hoping to come this autumn, but I'm praying that everything sorts itself out and that we'll have an opportunity to kind of see each other in Nigeria. You've been inviting me for so many years, and this was the year I was planning to make it. So let's just pray that everyone stays healthy and that we stay safe, and that everyone continues to stay home and protect not just themselves, but everyone else.
Of course.
And as a human race, as you said, all around the world, regardless of who we are or where we come from, that we'll find a way of getting through this.
Together.
Yeah. Together. Okay. It was so lovely to see your face, Omoyemi. I miss our chats. And, thanks to everyone who joined us from all over the world today. I see lots of Nigerian flags. Everyone's saying that you're representing Nigeria very well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll be doing many more of these conversations with members of the BOF community and members of the BOF 500 community in the coming days, weeks, and months. So I hope you'll all tune in, share your feedback with us using the hashtag BOF Live, and all of you stay safe and stay home.
Thank you, Imran. You stay safe, and
I will.
see you soon.
I hope so. I hope so. Take good care.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.